Dear friends, please get comfortable and gently close your eyes. The moonlight tonight, streaming softly through the window, is perfect for us to journey back to the distant past and explore an ancient story of beauty, survival, and magic. We are turning back time to the dawn of civilization on the Korean peninsula, a time when there was no name Korea, only primitive tribes scattered among the mountains and rivers. You might think people then were too busy hunting and gathering to worry about makeup, right? But believe me, cosmetics are one of humanity's oldest, most instinctive arts. In that era of living by instinct, the purpose of makeup wasn't to look pretty, but to survive. Imagine the scene. The night is deep, and the tribe gathers around a bonfire. A strong male warrior is preparing for the next day's hunt. He isn't putting on armor, but he picks up a coarse stone dusted with a dark red powder, pigment ground from cinnabar ore. Mixing this with animal fat, he uses his fingers to roughly smear it across his face. He draws heavy black stripes, mimicking the markings of a tiger in the jungle, then adds striking red lines, tracing along his eye sockets, imitating the fierce eyes of a hawk. This type of painting was the earliest form of war paint. Its function was multifaceted. First, on a physical level, the animal fat mixed with pigment served as a kind of natural sunscreen and insect repellent. By helping the warrior blend into the shadows, the paint increased the chances of a successful hunt. Second, on a psychological level, the exaggerated makeup made the warrior appear more fierce and terrifying when confronting beasts or rival tribes. It was a psychological weapon that instantly transformed an ordinary human into a totem, imbued with sacred power. When he charged at an enemy with a roar, the foe didn't see a man, but a beast given magic by the paint. The women of the tribe, meanwhile, connected their makeup more to spirits and rituals. During ceremonies to pray for a good harvest or favorable weather, they were the conduits to communicate with the heavens. They would apply red plant juices to their bodies, symbolizing life and fertility, or use white lime powder on their faces, symbolizing the moon and purity. This makeup was a sacred disguise, allowing them to better embody the role of a divine messenger. In these rituals, the application of pigment was often accompanied by complex dances and chants. Every color, every line, carried the tribe's collective memory, faith, and hope for the future. Red symbolized blood, life, and the earth. Black symbolized night, depth, and the unknown. And white represented light, the soul, and the moon. Cosmetics back then were magic potions, and the act of applying them was a powerful religious ceremony. In that time, there was no concept of aesthetics, only power and connection. The most beautiful makeup was not the prettiest, but the one that was most powerful and most likely to bring good fortune. As time passed, tribes merged and entered the agricultural age. Life became more stable, and the purpose of makeup quietly began to shift. When people no longer had to constantly wrestle with beasts, the lines of makeup softened, and the application became more subtle. In agricultural society, a woman's beauty became associated with fertility and health. Rosy cheeks symbolized good health and the ease of bearing children. Smooth skin suggested a life of ease and ample food supply. At this point, cosmetics slowly transitioned from mere war materials to life necessities. But no matter how the times changed, the fundamental philosophy of makeup in ancient Korea never did. Beauty is the external expression of vitality. A healthy, vibrant body was always more important than any elaborate makeup. This devotion to a healthy foundation will be a thread throughout our entire story, all the way to modern K-beauty. Imagine, thousands of years ago, a woman carefully applying red berry juice while looking at her blurred reflection in the water. What she was thinking wasn't whether she looked alluring, but may the earth yield a rich harvest, and may our people be safe. What a touching testament to the original, pure belief in beauty. Dear friends, in the last chapter, we witnessed how in the most ancient times, makeup served as totem and magic, aiding in hunting and prayer. But that makeup carried the rough scent of earth and plants. The colors were simple, the purpose pure. Now, let's move forward. The footsteps of time have led us into the era of bronze and iron. This was a time of human intellectual explosion, where people no longer just relied on nature's gifts, but learned the art of smelting. Did you know that the technique of refining metal didn't just bring sharper weapons and tools? It also brought revolutionary changes to the ancient cosmetic table. When people discovered that heating ore in a furnace could yield hard metals, they also grew interested in the Earth's various colorful minerals. They realized that the pigments used for painting totems could be obtained in a purer, more stable form from deep underground ore. Imagine this: a tribal woman no longer needed to mix earth and animal fat for her paints. Her pigments had an upgrade. Red was no longer just plant juice, but powder meticulously ground from cinnabar, an ore containing mercury sulfide. This red was highly saturated and color stable, giving a more lasting and vivid visual impact when applied to the face. Black was no longer easily smudged charcoal, but extracted from graphite or iron ore, resulting in a richer, deeper hue. The emergence of these mineral pigments marked the shift of makeup from primitive magic to refined art. More stable colors meant that makeup could last longer and allow for more complex designs, signifying that women now had the leisure to appreciate and contemplate their appearance. Another massive change brought by bronze metallurgy was the birth of the mirror. Before the Bronze Age, women could only vaguely see their outline in a hazy pool of water or polished obsidian. But now, artisans carefully polished and refined bronze to create bronze mirrors that clearly reflected the human image. Try to imagine an ancient woman seeing her complete face clearly in a copper mirror for the very first time. She could precisely see the height of her brows, the depth of her rouge, and the texture of her hair. This mirror was not just a tool. It was an awakening of self-awareness. This mirror led to two main outcomes: technological leap, since they could see clearly. The makeup had to be applied more finely and symmetrically. Rough strokes were replaced by detailed applications that required skill and patience. Makeup officially became a craft. Change in purpose. As women gazed at themselves in the copper mirror, the purpose of makeup completely shifted from appeasing gods, driving away evil, to pleasing self, displaying status. A refined look was no longer about winning a battle, but about showing off one's status and wealth at tribal gatherings, because only families with access to artisans and mineral resources could afford these expensive mineral pigments. By the Iron Age, productivity increased further, and society began to show clearer class divisions. Cosmetics became a label for social standing. The pigments used by noble women had to be the purest and rarest mineral extracts, while commoners might still use plant juices and earth. Also, let's not forget ancient men. In the Bronze and Iron Ages, tribes constantly fought over resources and land, making the status of the warrior supremely important. While the men's war paint retained its totemic intimidation, it became more refined in detail. They would use deep black mineral pigments to paint sharp, geometric patterns on their faces, symbolizing discipline, strength, and honor. This type of makeup was far more aggressive and symbolic than the women's ornamental grooming. Friend, you see, when a cold piece of ore was melted by fire, transformed into a shiny copper mirror, and ground into fine pigment, it simultaneously ignited the ancients' pursuit of a beautiful life and self-worth. Our next stop in the story is the most spectacular aesthetic showdown in the history of the Korean peninsula: the Three Kingdoms period. Back then, each kingdom had its own signature national color. Please, keep that curiosity for ancient colors with you as we delve into that transnational aesthetic battle. Friends, we have grasped the aesthetic competition of the Three Kingdoms era. Now, let's turn our gaze northward to the Goguryeo Kingdom, the mighty realm renowned for its military prowess. In Goguryeo, strength was the most beautiful ornament. The aesthetic of both men and women carried a sense of unruly, almost wild confidence. If you could travel to the Goguryeo court or a noble household, you would find their makeup distinctly different from the refined styles of the southern Baekje. This was not merely a difference in geography, but a reflection of the cultural spirit. Goguryeo people had constant contact with northern nomadic tribes, and their society valued archery and combat. This martial spirit profoundly influenced the female aesthetic. The women of Goguryeo, their makeup resembled an impassioned battle hymn, full of power and assertion, eyebrows, the vitality of flight. Their brows moved away from the gentle, subtle willow leaf shape, instead favoring the thick, dark, and sharply upswept flying cloud brows or eight-character brows. This shape conveyed a sense of heroism and decisiveness, as if ready to ride a horse at a moment's notice. The pigment used was the graphite or willow charcoal we mentioned earlier, but applied more heavily with bolder strokes. Color, a declaration of saturation. Goguryeo women were anything but frugal with their rouge. They favored high saturation vermilion reds, applying large blocks of the safflower extract on the cheeks, sometimes even extending towards the corners of the eyes, creating a striking, vigorous red color block. This red symbolized passion, health, and burgeoning vitality, contrasting sharply with their darker, more substantial clothing. Foundation, healthy sun-kissed tone. Compared to the extreme paleness of the South, the foundation worn by Goguryeo women was closer to a healthy natural skin tone, perhaps slightly tanned. This isn't to say they didn't use rice powder, but they felt excessive pallor seemed weak. They used the rice powder to achieve an even, clean complexion, not a stark white one. The beauty of their base lay in its healthy glow. This bold and powerful makeup perfectly matched the Goguryeo women's attire. They often wore tight-sleeved, fitted garments, like the early forms of the kima and gyogori, allowing for ease of movement. Their hairstyles also leaned toward high-piled buns or rolls, secured with simple bands or powerful-looking gold and silver ornaments, rather than the tiny, delicate jade of baekje. More interestingly, this aesthetic permeated society. Women in Goguryeo enjoyed a relatively high status. They participated not only in household affairs, but sometimes also in military training or labor. Their makeup was a symbol of their confidence and independence. This vibrant makeup was often brighter than the totemic armor worn by the male warriors, silently declaring, "We are the people of the Northern Lion, and we fear no challenge." This rugged yet confident aesthetic was a cultural gene of Goguryeo. It emphasized action, strength, and direct expression, a far cry from the Confucian ideal of subtlety and restraint. Yet it shone with a unique, dazzling light in that age of heroes. From the murals of Goguryeo, we can clearly see that those sweeping brows and intense reds were the most vivid color imprints they left on history. Dear friend, please remember this strength and passion of the Northern Kingdom. In the next chapter, we will travel south to the other extreme, the Baekje Kingdom, renowned for its art and intellect, to see how their soft focus filter was created. Friends, please imagine that the land beneath our feet is the wealthiest and most splendid kingdom of the Three Kingdoms era, Silla. Silla was isolated from the northern Goguryeo and competitive with the western Baekje. It absorbed various cultures from the maritime Silk Road, and the rise of Buddhism infused its aesthetics with characteristics of solemnity and brilliance. Silla accumulated vast amounts of gold, and its nobles wore this wealth without reserve. Their aesthetic philosophy was simple and direct. The more splendid, the more powerful, the more dazzling. The nobler Silla's makeup resembled a grand festival, foundation fusion of luster and health. The white that Silla women sought was a warm, luminous white, like meticulously polished jade. They used rice powder as a base, but emphasized skin moisturization and nourishment, linked to the natural secrets we will discuss later, allowing the foundation to appear with a healthy transparency rather than a pale mask. Color, harmonious vividness. Compared to the rugged red of Goguryeo, Silla's rouge was vivid yet more harmonious, looking like it naturally radiated from healthy skin. They favored high-saturation vermilion lip rouge, making the lips the most eye-catching focal point on the face. Facial decoration, the mark of gold. This was the most distinctive feature of Silla's makeup. Noble women often applied various patterns of gold leaf or hdabian, floral dots made from gold powder, to their foreheads and cheeks. These golden ornaments shimmered in the sunlight, symbolizing the solemnity of Buddhism and the nobility of the royal court. These gold accessories directly declared the wearer's rank within the strict bone rank system. In Silla, the male pursuit of splendor reached its peak. The hareng we mentioned in Chapter 3 are the prime representatives of this aesthetic. The hachwareng pushed the concept of beauty is power to the extreme. Their long hair was woven with golden threads. They wore large gold earrings. Many exquisite gold earrings have been excavated from Silla tombs, and their attire featured complex gold thread embroidery. While their faces weren't heavily painted like the women's, they would lightly dab their cheeks with pale pink or orange flower petal juice, ensuring their complexion looked full of youthful vitality. The splendor of the horang was a beauty full of confidence and cultural depth. It told the world that Silla was not only a military victor, but also a wealthy patron of culture and art. As Silla unified the three kingdoms, their splendid aesthetic gradually became the mainstream on the Korean peninsula. Goguryeo ruggedness and Baekje's subtlety were integrated and absorbed. But Silla's preference for gold, luster, and intricate accessories was deeply imprinted on the unified aesthetic consciousness. Friend, the beauty contest of the Three Kingdoms era finally concludes. We have seen Goguryeo's power red, Baekje's jade white, and Silla's golden luster. These three are like the primary colors on a palette, collectively forming the initial tone of ancient Korean makeup. Now, we will shift our focus from inter-kingdom competition to the refinement of craft. In the next chapter, we will step into the ancient cosmetic factory to discover how they used the humblest rice to refine the most delicate and perfect foundation. This was an ancient craft that demanded patience, wisdom, and time. Please put away your astonishment at the gold as we quietly slip into the ancient grinding workshops. Friends, please imagine the vanity table of an ancient woman. There were no mass-produced bottles and jars. Every cosmetic product was the crystallization of time, patience, and natural ingredients. In ancient Korea, whether it was the splendor of the Three Kingdoms or the later simplicity of the Joseon dynasty, the pursuit of foundation remained constant, fair, smooth, and preferably luminous. To achieve this effect, their secret weapon was surprisingly the most common staple food, rice. But be warned, the rice powder ancient women used was not the coarse powder ground by a machine. It was an art form requiring an extremely complex and lengthy process to refine, known as the su bai boop water. Flying method. Try to visualize this process. First, they would select the finest quality rice or glutinous rice. Glutinous rice was often favored because its higher starch content resulted in a finer, more adherent powder. Next, they would repeatedly wash the rice grains and then soak them in clear well or stream water, sometimes for several days until the grains became soft enough to be easily crushed by hand. The most critical step then began, grinding and water flying. Artisans or the women themselves would grind the grains into a rice slurry using a traditional stone mill, and then pour the slurry into a container full of clean water. This was like a magic of sedimentation. The coarser particles in the slurry would quickly sink to the bottom, while the light, incredibly fine starch particles would remain suspended in the water above. They would carefully skim off the cloudy top layer and the coarse particles, leaving only the middle layer of suspended, purest, finest rice slurry. This process had to be repeated multiple times, much like an alchemist refining gold, each water flying step elevated the quality of the rice powder. After multiple rounds of sedimentation and filtration, the remaining slurry would be spread on clean cloth or placed in a ventilated area to slowly evaporate the water. This step required great patience. It could not be hastened by fire, or the powder would lose its natural moisture and adherence. Finally, when the water was completely gone, what remained was a layer of creamy, smooth, silk-like paste. Gently crushing this paste yielded the foundation powder that ancient women dreamed of. White powder, bake bun. The advantages of this rice powder were hard to match by modern cosmetics. Extremely safe. It was food grade, containing no heavy metals or harmful substances, making it virtually non-irritating to the skin. Adherent and luminous, the particle structure of rice starch made it highly compatible with the skin's natural oils, preventing the caking common with modern foundations, and imparting a translucent, naturally glowing luster to the skin. Nourishing, the vitamins and amino acids naturally present in the rice grains meant that this powder had certain skin care benefits while simultaneously acting as makeup. This rice powder was the perfect embodiment of the ancient Korean philosophy of pursuing a healthy foundation. It was time-consuming and labor-intensive, symbolizing the ancient woman's reverence and patience for beauty. Only those with such patience could achieve that pristine foundation, like moonlight scattered on snow. Whether Goguryeo nobles used it to even out their skin tone, Baekje ladies used it to create a jade-like glow, or later Joseon women sought purity. This rice powder was the cornerstone of all beauty. Friends, we have found the soul of ancient Korean makeup. the rice powder. But powder alone is not enough. It needs to be transformed into a compact that is easy to carry and apply. In the next chapter, we will reveal how the ancients made this rice powder into different foundation products, and what temptations, both beautiful and dangerous, they faced in the process. Please join me, carrying your respect for this tiny grain of rice as we continue our exploration. Friends, we now hold the safest rice powder, which is delicate, gentle, and the foundation of health. But remember, the human pursuit of extreme beauty is often irrational, even daring. During the Three Kingdoms and unified Silla periods, especially among the nobility, the obsession with fairness reached a fever pitch. Why? Because in ancient times, only noblewomen who were not required to labor in the fields, who could stay indoors all day, and who enjoyed ample food and nourishing oils, could possess snow, white, flawless skin. Therefore, extreme fairness was a silent declaration of class and wealth. While rice powder was safe, it was, after all, a food starch, with limited coverage and a gentle, natural white color, making it difficult to achieve that dramatic, moonlit jade sculpture pallor. It was then that a new seductive material appeared: lead powder, yan bun. Lead powder, extracted from lead minerals, had many attractive advantages. Extreme whiteness. Lead powder had high reflectivity and coverage, instantly transforming any skin tone into a bloodless, dramatic pallor that seemed almost otherworldly. Superior adherence. The uniform particles of lead powder, when mixed with oil, clung tightly to the skin, making the makeup long-lasting and even less likely to smudge. Imagine a noblewoman of Silla. With rice powder, her complexion was gentle, but with lead powder, she instantly became noble, aloof, like a transcendent immortal. This instantaneous transformation made lead powder quickly popular in the court and high society, becoming synonymous with premium white powder. Ancient artisans used various methods to turn this powder into easily applicable foundation products. The most common was the powder compact. They would mix the fine lead powder, or improved rice shell powder, with natural honey, oil, or floral dew, kneading it into a soft paste. This paste was then pressed and dried in molds engraved with exquisite patterns. The dried compacts were not only beautifully shaped and easy to carry, but because they contained oil, they adhered smoothly to the face with just a light application. But the price of this beauty was enormous. Although women at the time did not know the chemical composition of lead powder, they quickly discovered its side effects. Women who used lead powder long-term found their skin becoming sallow, rough, and blemished, eventually leading to severe health issues like hair loss and nerve damage. This was a cruel paradox in ancient times. To pursue extreme whiteness, women had to use lead powder, but this powder would ultimately destroy the very healthy skin base they sought. Many women throughout history who pursued the white beauty paid a heavy price for this beautiful poison. Fortunately, this dangerous foundation was not the only choice. As the times progressed, people began to seek healthier alternatives. Shell powder, common seashells or oyster shells, were burned and ground into powder. This also provided good whiteness and was lead-free, and though not as fine as lead powder, it had the advantage of being safe and non-toxic. Pearl powder. This was reserved for the wealthiest royalty. Natural pearls were ground into powder, which not only offered luster and whiteness, but was also believed to have medicinal value for whitening, anti-inflammation, and promoting skin regeneration. Friends, this foundation story tells us that the exploration of the boundaries of beauty has always been filled with struggle and trade-offs. Ancient women, in their pursuit of class symbols, had to face the difficult choice between health and vanity. But it was these lessons that led women of the later Joseon dynasty to cherish the safe rice powder we discussed in the last chapter, combining it with natural skincare secrets to eventually develop the K-beauty philosophy of pursuing health and glow from within. We have unveiled the secret of white. Next, we will turn our attention to the other protagonist on the ancient vanity table, red. How did ancient women extract this color, which symbolizes life and love, from a single flower? Please join me, contemplating the cost of beauty, as we continue to explore the mystery of red. Friends, if you can imagine an ancient woman's face, the most indispensable feature, besides the pale foundation, is a touch of vibrant red. In the ancient mind, while white symbolized nobility, purity, and freedom from labor, red symbolized life, health, and fertility. Without the accent of red, even the fairest face would appear pale and lifeless. This color of vitality came from the protagonist of the ancient woman's vanity table, Rouge Yeonji. So where exactly did this beautiful red color come from? In ancient Korea, the primary and most precious source of red pigment was a plant called safflower, Sivri tuvite, also known as honghwa. Safflower is a peculiar plant. Its flowers bloom in golden or orange, yellow, appearing quite different from the bright red we desire. But ancient artisans possessed extraordinary wisdom. They knew that the petals of the safflower concealed two types of pigment: yellow pigment, highly soluble in water and abundant in quantity. Red pigment difficult to dissolve in water, extremely scarce, but the key to refining rouge. Therefore, the process of extracting rouge was a long war against the yellow pigment, truly an ancient chemistry experiment. Try to imagine this arduous process. First, the women needed to harvest a vast quantity of safflower. To produce a small box of high-quality rouge often required hundreds, even thousands of flowers. Then, they had to place the fresh petals in clean water, repeatedly washing, soaking, and rinsing them. With each rinse, the yellow pigment in the water had to be completely flushed out. This step demanded perfection. Even a trace of yellow would make the final rouge color dull and impure. This required immense patience and care. Once the yellow pigment was thoroughly washed away, what remained were the water, insoluble, weakly red fibers. Next, they would soak these red fibers in an acidic substance, like rice vinegar or fermented rice water, then add an alkaline substance, like lye from wood ash for neutralization, repeatedly performing sedimentation and filtration. This complex chemical reaction was necessary to precipitate the precious red pigment. Finally, the extracted red pigment was carefully sun-dried, then mixed with natural oils like camellia oils or beeswax, kneaded into a spreadable paste, and placed into exquisite mother-of-pearl boxes. This box of rouge represented the embodiment of the life of hundreds of safflowers, the wisdom of the artisan, and the patience of the woman, thus making it one of the most treasured possessions on the ancient vanity table. The application of rouge was also an art form. Rouge was used as blush on the cheeks and lip color, ipsil yanji. Goguryeo women applied it intensely. Silla women applied it with luster, and Bakje women, and later Joseon women, applied it subtly and reservedly, simply dabbing it lightly on the upper cheekbones or near the corners of the eyes to create a hint of shyness or a healthy flush. Although men did not use obvious blush, as we mentioned, orang or male members of the royal court would sometimes use highly diluted safflower water, or a very pale rouge paste, lightly patting it onto their lips or cheeks to improve their complexion and combat fatigue. This application was extremely meticulous, aiming for the state of looking healthy and vibrant without visible trace of makeup. This dedication to pure red reflects the ancient people's reverence for natural vitality. They believed that only colors extracted directly from nature could bring true good fortune and beauty. Friend, the story of safflower rouge is about the art of time and refinement. From an ordinary yellow flower to a precious red paste, the chemical wisdom and patience involved are another valuable legacy the ancients left us. We now have the white foundation and the red rouge. In the next chapter, we will focus on that final, vital touch, how the most basic materials were used to draw the eyebrows, whether they were heroic and bold or gentle and subtle. Please continue with me as we delve into the art of the brow. Friends, after the ancient woman gazed into the bronze mirror and lightly applied her rouge, she took a deep breath and began the most demanding step, drawing the brows. In ancient times, it was often said, "The brows are the brilliance of the eyes." Eyebrows were believed to be the external manifestation of one's temperament, fortune, and wisdom. The shape of one's brows not only determined their stylistic appearance, whether bold and heroic or gentle and refined, but also revealed, to some extent, their social class and level of upbringing. So, what did ancient women and refined scholars use to draw their brows? Their eyebrows pencils were entirely natural, relying on two main materials, willow charcoal, ryu tan. the most popular natural eyebrow pencil. This was the most common material, sourced from the familiar willow branch. Artisans would cut the branches into small segments and char them over a fire, but not allow them to burn completely to ash. They had to control the heat precisely, allowing the willow branch only to undergo incomplete carbonization, resulting in a charcoal stick with a fine texture and pure black color. This willow charcoal was highly practical. It was soft, easy to apply, and provided a stable, matte black color. Both ordinary commoner women and some noblewomen seeking a natural look would use it. They would sharpen the charcoal stick and gently draw the desired brow shape. Brows drawn with willow charcoal possessed a simple yet natural beauty. Graphite, soak, muk, the choice of nobles and scholars. For nobles or male literati, pursuing longevity, luster, and refined lines. The matte finish of willow charcoal might not have been considered sophisticated enough. They opted for ground natural graphite, a carbon mineral. Graphite's color was deeper and more lustrous than willow charcoal. Artisans would mix the graphite powder with natural oils, like sesame oil or camellia oil, and press it into shape similar to making ink sticks. When used, it required grinding with clean water or diluted oil on a small ink stone, applying the resulting ink with a small brush to draw the brows. This graphite brow color was not only deep black and long-lasting, but also carried a subtle sheen, accentuating the refinement and nobility of the scholar. Male grooming of brows and beard, the embodiment of temperament and scholarship, particularly during the Joseon dynasty. The grooming of brows and beards among the Sadaebu scholar official class was even more stringent than women's makeup. Eyebrows, scholars believed that the shape of the brows reflected one's integrity and uprightness. They sought a clean-lined, evenly colored, slightly heroic brow shape. If the brows were sparse, they would meticulously fill them in with graphite. The purpose of this grooming was not merely aesthetics, but to demonstrate their integrity, clarity of mind, and learning. Beard for ancient men, the beard was an even greater symbol of adulthood, status, and authority. They would use specialized small knives or scissors to trim their beards and oils to set them, maintaining the beard's neatness, luster, and shape. A well-groomed beard was like an invisible certificate of status. Review of style differences in the Three Kingdoms. Goguryeo. Women's brows were rugged, upswept flying cloud brows, and men's brows were thick and straight, collectively embodying the martial spirit. Baekje. Women's brows were thin, curved willow leaf brows, and men's brows were delicate and gentle, reflecting intellect and harmony. Silla. Brow shapes were more diverse, but often paired with gold accessories, emphasizing splendor. Friend, you see how a small eyebrow pencil carries the complex understanding of beauty, class, and morality for the ancients. Every stroke of the brow silently tells the story of who I am. We have completed the three main facial elements: foundation, rouge, and eyebrows. But beauty is not isolated. It requires the complement of fine hair. In the next chapter, we will shift our attention from the face to the jet black, smooth long hair, revealing the secret, the fragrance of camellia oil, that ancient women and men used to maintain their hair's luster. Please continue with me as we delve into the world of hair oil. Friends, when you visualize an ancient Korean woman or a refined scholar, beyond the delicate face, the most striking feature is their jet black, smooth and gleaming long hair. In ancient times, hair was called the flower of the body. A healthy head of hair was not only a symbol of feminine allure, but also a sign of male health, refinement, and wealth. Imagine dry, messy hair. Even paired with the finest makeup, the overall impression would be diminished. Therefore, hair care held an exceptionally important place in the ancient beauty regimen. So, how did the ancients achieve this silk-like luster? Their secret weapon was hidden within a fruit from a southern plant, camellia seeds, dongbak, sekat. The camellia oil, dongbak oil, extracted from these seeds, was universally recognized as the king of hair care in ancient Korea. Its refinement process was very pure. The seeds were harvested, dried, roasted, and then pressed using a traditional stone mill or oil press. This pressing was usually cold, pressed to maximize the preservation of the oil's natural nutrients and delicate fragrance. The preciousness and efficacy of camellia oil were manifold. Excellent nourishment. Camellia oil is rich in oleic acid, a monounsaturated fatty acid, structurally very similar to human sebum, making it highly compatible with and easily absorbed by the scalp and hair shafts. It penetrated deep into the hair shaft, repairing damaged cuticles and making the hair shine from within. Setting and adherence. For women, camellia oil was the perfect hair wax and setting agent. Ancient women's hair buns were often high or intricate, requiring oil to increase the hair's suppleness and cohesion, ensuring the bun looked smooth, sleek, and frizz-free. Male authority symbol for male Sadibu scholar officials. A hair bun styled with camellia oil to be lustrous, neat, and not a single strand out of place symbolized their diligence, self-discipline, and nobility. This, along with their neatly trimmed brows and beard enhanced with graphite, formed their authoritative appearance. Natural fragrance. Good camellia oil carried a light, herbaceous fragrance. The ancients would infuse natural spices like plum blossoms or cloves in the oil, allowing it to absorb the floral scents. When applied to the hair, this oil became the ancient person's most subtle and sophisticated, personal scent, conveying better taste than any strong perfume. The ancient woman's application of the oil was also ritualistic. They would first wash their hair with rice rinsing water, a secret we'll detail later, then place a few drops of camellia oil in their palms, warm it by rubbing, and gently apply it to the ends and surface of the hair bun. They would use combs made of boxwood or ox horn, brushing repeatedly to ensure the oil permeated evenly. You see, from head to toe, the ancient pursuit of beauty relied on the gifts of nature. Camellia oil was not just a hair product. It was also a makeup remover, gently dissolving rice powder and rouge, and even a moisturizing oil. Its versatility made it an indispensable all-purpose essential in the ancient boudoir. We have now covered the detailed grooming of the face and hair by the ancients, but these beautiful powders, pastes, and fragrant oils needed suitable tools to contain and apply them. In the next chapter, we will open the ancient woman's cosmetic toolkit and see the exquisite daily items hidden within those wooden boxes decorated with mother of pearl and jade. Please continue with me as we examine the ingenuity of the ancient artisans, friends, carrying the fragrance of camellia oil. We now enter another charming corner of the ancient boudoir, the cosmetic toolkit. We will see how the skillful hands of ancient artisans transformed everyday items into exquisite works of art. Imagine we have completed the full ancient makeup and hair routine. The foundation is delicate rice powder. The brows are defined with willow charcoal or graphite, and the hair is set with fragrant camellia oil. But none of this could be achieved without the unsung helpers, the various tools. Ancient cosmetic tools lacked modern electric brushes or cushion puffs, but they were full of natural wisdom and the warmth of the artisan's touch. A delicate ancient cosmetic toolkit was, in itself, a collectible piece of art. First, let's look at the container of this toolkit. The cosmetic boxes of ancient nobles were typically made of high-quality wood, like boxwood or red sandalwood, often inlaid with exquisite mother-of-pearl thinly sliced shells, or pearls inlaid onto lacquerware to form patterns or jade ornaments. Opening it felt like opening a small, secret treasure chest. Hidden within this treasure were several important tools: bronze and silver mirrors, a window to self-reflection. This was the most crucial tool. In the Three Kingdoms era, we already witnessed the awakening of self-awareness, brought by the bronze mirror. As technology advanced, the mirror material was upgraded. By the unified Silla and Joseon dynasties, wealthy families began using silver mirrors. Silver mirrors were brighter and offered better reflection than copper ones. These mirrors were usually polished to be smooth and bright, with auspicious patterns carved on the back, such as long-lived pine trees or bats symbolizing good fortune. They were more than just mirrors. They were crafts embodying beautiful aspirations. Grinding tools, the alchemy of natural pigments. Since ancient pigments, graphite, cinnabar, safflower pigment, were mostly powdered or dried chunks, they had to be ground and mixed before use. Therefore, a small set of inkstone and grinding stick was essential in the cosmetic box. Women would add clean water or oil here, using the stick to grind the dry pigment into a paste or liquid for easy application with a brush. This was a process full of ritual and handcrafted feel. Combs, the care of wood and horn. Combs were among the most frequently used tools by both ancient men and women. The best combs were made from hardwoods like boxwood or sandalwood, meticulously polished with smooth teeth that wouldn't damage the scalp. Even more esteemed were ox horn combs. The ancients believed that horn combs could eliminate static electricity and nourish the hair, as the horn's composition was thought to be similar to hair, thus benefiting the scalp with long-term use. Combing was not just for styling, but also a form of scalp massage and maintenance. Application tools, simple cotton and brushes. Ancient people didn't have modern sponges or cushion puffs. What did they use to apply rice powder and rouge? Applying powder, primarily small squares of soft cotton cloth or silk. They would gently pat the white powder onto the cloth and then apply it to the face using a pressing, tapping motion to ensure the powder was even and adherent without looking heavy. Detailing, drawing brows, and dotting lip color required the use of fine brushes. These brushes typically had extremely fine tips, perfect for drawing the bakje willow leaf brows, or the silla hashwajian, floral dots, small jars and boxes, storing precious secrets. Homemade products like rouge paste, camellia oil paste, and hair wax all needed to be sealed and stored to prevent spoilage and evaporation. The cosmetic box was filled with various ceramic, porcelain, or mother-of-pearl decorated small jars and boxes. Each little box held a woman's unique beauty secret. Friends, these toolkits show us that ancient makeup was more than just a process of application. It was a lifestyle rich in artistry, environmental awareness, and handcrafted spirit. Every item was sourced from nature, meticulously finished by artisans, carrying respect for order and beauty. We have completed our exploration of the ancient process of external beautification, from raw materials to tools. But true, ancient K-beauty was never just about external work. In the next chapter, we will step into the ancient kitchen to uncover the generational secrets of skincare from within, starting with the water used to rinse rice every day. Please continue with me as we see how ancient women turned the kitchen into a beauty parlor. Friends, when you imagine the daily life of an ancient Korean woman, you might not associate rice rinsing water with premium skincare. Yet, the truth is that the most commonly used and highly effective cleanser and miracle water for ancient Korean women came from the rice water. Water saltum, mul left over from their daily cooking. This was no ordinary rinse water. It contained the deep ancient wisdom regarding fermentation and natural ingredients. First, let's understand why rice water was so valuable. Natural starch, rice water, contained a large amount of rice starch particles washed off the grains. These particles were extremely fine and could gently absorb oil and impurities from the skin, acting as a cleanser. B vitamins during the soaking and rinsing process. The rice grains released a rich amount of B vitamins, particularly B1, B2, and B6. These vitamins were natural antioxidants and skin conditioners, helping to brighten the complexion and promote cell regeneration. Minerals and amino acids. Rice water also contained various minerals and amino acids providing basic nourishment and hydration, keeping the skin soft and elastic. But ancient women's wisdom went further. They knew how to make this water even more effective through fermentation. They would not use fresh rice water immediately for cleansing. Instead, they would collect it and leave it to stand in an earthenware jar for a day or two. At an appropriate temperature, the carbohydrates in the rice water would undergo natural fermentation with airborne microorganisms. This process generated trace amounts of lactic acid and enzymes. Lactic acid. This is a gentle alpha-hydroxy acid, AHA. Fermented rice water achieved a mildly acidic pH, which closely matched the slightly acidic protective barrier on our skin's surface. Around 5.5. Cleansing with this water not only avoided damaging the skin barrier, but also provided gentle exfoliation. It helped dissolve dead skin cells, making the skin appear smoother and more luminous. Enzymes are capable of breaking down proteins and oils, providing deep cleansing and skin-softening effects. Therefore, fermented rice water became a multi-purpose tonic that combined gentle cleansing, weak acid balancing, natural exfoliation, and whitening nourishment. Ancient women used it daily, morning and evening, to wash their faces and bodies, which was the secret to maintaining their skin transparency and radiance. This rice water cleansing method is a perfect embodiment of the ancient Korean philosophy of heavy on nourishment, light on adornment. It teaches us that true beauty stems from respectful and wise utilization of everyday resources. It required no expensive spending but delivered the healthiest possible skin condition. Friends, we have seen how ancient women cleansed their skin with rice water. But in the pursuit of fairness and smoothness, the skin also needs deep detoxification and purging. In the next chapter, we will enter the ancient apothecary and kitchen to discover another common natural cleanser, mung bean powder, and see how it became the ancient detox mask. Please continue with me as we grind the magical mung bean. Friends, we have learned how ancient women used fermented rice water for gentle cleansing and skin nourishment. Now, we will step into the ancient natural spa to uncover the secret to deeper cleansing and detoxification. Mung bean powder, nakdu. If rice powder was the gentle foundation for ancient women, then mung bean powder was their deep purifying mask and multifunctional cleanser. In ancient Korea, mung beans were not only an important food, but also a precious natural ingredient widely used in medicine and beauty. The ancients long ago discovered that mung beans possessed properties that could clear heat, detoxify, and reduce inflammation. This knowledge was cleverly transformed into daily beauty practices. The process of making mung bean powder was relatively simple, but required finesse. First, the mung beans needed to be meticulously sorted and washed to ensure they were free of impurities. Then, they would be thoroughly dried and ground into an extremely fine powder using a traditional stone mill. Only a sufficiently fine powder could act gently on the skin, preventing rough particles from scratching the face. This delicate mung bean powder had at least 3 magical uses in the ancient boudoir. Daily cleansing powder. Mung bean powder was regarded as the finest ancient, natural facial cleanser. Women would place the powder in a small cloth bag. When it met hot water, the natural saponins within the mung beans would be released. This natural saponin possessed soap-like foaming and cleansing abilities, gently removing excess oil and dirt from the face. It was much milder than any chemical soap, especially suitable for acne-prone or sensitive skin. Deep purifying mask. The primary use of mung bean powder was as a facial mask. Ancient women would mix the powder with honey, egg white, or fermented rice water to form a paste, which they would apply to the face and leave on for a period. Detoxification and acne treatment. The cooling and heat-clearing properties of mung beans could soothe inflamed skin and help draw out toxins and impurities from deep within the pores, providing significant assistance in treating acne and breakouts. Whitening and brightening. The active ingredients in mung beans could also inhibit melanin formation, making the skin appear more fair, even-toned, and radiant with long-term use. Body scrub. Mung bean powder could also be used for the entire body. Mixed with water or oil, it was applied to the body and gently massaged, acting as a mild exfoliant to keep the entire body's skin smooth and delicate. The prevalence of this mung bean beauty method underscores the ancient Korean commitment to the philosophy of healing nature with nature. They believed that materials sourced from nature that were medicinal and edible in the same source could not only nourish the body but also purify the skin. Even more interestingly, this mung bean powder cleansing method was not gender-specific. Male nobles and scholars also used mung bean powder to clean their faces. Especially during the summer, the cooling effect of mung beans helped them remove oiliness from sweat and keep their faces feeling fresh, adhering to the Sadabu class requirement for neat and clear grooming. Friends, we have uncovered the ancient secrets to cleansing and purifying the skin. But to maintain that jade-like luster, deep nourishment and hydration are essential. In the next chapter, we will explore another precious natural ingredient, honey and egg white, and see how they transformed from kitchen ingredients into ancient collagen serums and firming masks. Please continue with me as we formulate the ancient nourishing recipes. Friends, once the skin has been renewed under the purification of rice water and mung bean powder, the next crucial step is deep nourishment and repair. Ancient women didn't have expensive serums or creams. but they possessed the most powerful natural laboratory in their kitchens. In the ancient Korean beauty system, two important food items were regarded as excellent moisturizers and firming agents: honey, cool, and egg white gyron. Honey. 1. Honey, the natural moisture magnet. The ancients viewed honey beyond just food. They regarded it as a medicinal and beauty panacea. Extreme hydration. Honey's main component is sugar, giving it powerful hygroscopic properties. It draws moisture from the air and locks it firmly within the skin. Ancient women would mix honey with rice powder, sesame oil, etc., to create nourishing creams or ointments, to apply during the dry seasons to prevent skin dryness and cracking. Anti-inflammatory repair. Honey contains natural antibacterial and anti-inflammatory components. Applying honey directly to pimples or small wounds could soothe and accelerate healing. This natural repair power was a key safeguard for ancient women to maintain a healthy skin base. In the cold winter, whether palace ladies or commoners, they would use a small amount of honey mixed with natural oils to nourish their exposed hands and cheeks. This was not just beauty, but a form of practical protection, too. Egg white, the ancient firming lift mask. Egg white was the ancient natural secret for tightening skin and reducing fine lines. Truly the ancient firming lift serum. Instant tightening. Egg white is primarily composed of protein. When applied to the face and dried, it forms a thin, transparent film on the skin's surface. This film creates a contracting force that instantly makes the skin feel taut and lifted. Ancient women used egg white as an immediate emergency mask to make their skin look firmer and smoother for important occasions. Pore minimizer. Egg white has the ability to absorb oil. For women with oily skin, it could draw out excess oil and impurities from the pores, helping to minimize pore size and make foundation application smoother. Ancient women were also skillful in applying egg white. They would carefully separate the yolk and white, only using the white, whisking it with chopsticks or a small stick, and then applying it to the clean face. Once the egg white was completely dry, they would gently rinse it off with warm water. 3. Comprehensive application. The ancient nutritional cocktail, of course. Ancient women did not use these ingredients in isolation. They would mix them with other components according to their skin's needs, creating personalized nutritional cocktails. Moisturizing mask, honey, plus mung bean powder, plus rice rinsing water. Whitening mask, egg white plus rice powder, plus a small amount of precious pearl powder, if available. Anti-wrinkle paste, honey plus camellia oil plus a small amount of precious herbal extracts. This, food medicine homology, beauty philosophy, permeated every aspect of ancient Korean makeup. It emphasized naturalness, safety, and the full utilization of raw materials. Friends, we have explored the secrets of ancient cleansing, purification, and nourishment. But the wisdom of ancient Korean makeup also lies in the natural plants connected to the seasons and climate. In the next chapter, we will leave the kitchen and enter the ancient courtyards and mountains to explore the fragrant natural spices and herbs that were the guardians of ancient women's scent and health. Please continue with me as we search for the ancient natural fragrance. Friends, we have left the ancient kitchen and boudoir, nourished by honey and egg white. Now, we will venture into the broader natural world to explore how ancient women utilized herbs and flowers to condition their bodies and maintain fragrance, achieving truly beauty from within. We have already discovered that the highest realm of ancient Korean beauty was not about how much cosmetic was applied, but about pursuing a naturally radiating glow and fragrance. This beauty and body scent emanating from the inside were far more sophisticated than any external adornment. In ancient Korea, the concept of food, medicine homology, yaksik dongwon, was deeply ingrained. People believed that the condition of the skin was a direct reflection of internal health. If the internal system was blocked or overheated, no amount of rice powder could conceal dullness and acne. Therefore, conditioning the body internally was the most crucial beauty secret of ancient women. They mainly relied on two natural forces to achieve this internal balance and body scent. Herbal tonics, the beauty broth. For qi and blood, ancient women consumed certain natural herbs with cosmetic benefits, as if they were medicine. They would learn recipes from apothecaries or female elders in the family, boiling the herbs into gentle tonics for long-term consumption to harmonize qi life energy and blood and nourish the complexion. Ginseng, in Som, regarded as a universal tonic, Although expensive, noblewomen would take small amounts to replenish qi and blood and delay aging. With sufficient qi and blood, the cheeks would naturally exhibit a rosy glow, minimizing the need for heavy rouge. Angelica gigas, dangui, known as the friend of women. It had the effect of invigorating blood circulation and regulating menstruation. Ancient women believed that good blood circulation resulted in a fair complexion with a rosy undertone, free from spots and dullness. Goji berries, gugija, used to nourish the liver and kidneys and improve eyesight. Long-term consumption was thought to help the skin retain moisture and elasticity, reducing skin issues caused by liver fire. This philosophy of internal herbal consumption emphasized treating the root cause. Their beauty was not made up, but cultivated. This dedication is the root of the modern K-beauty concept of skincare over makeup. 2. Flower baths and sachets, cultivating natural body scent since the ancients didn't have perfume. How did women maintain a fragrant body? They relied on natural flowers through bathing and wearing sachets, allowing the fragrance to subtly emanate from within. Petal baths, naturally fragrant flowers, like roses, plum blossoms, and sweet flag, Acorus calamus, were added to bath water. The petals not only provided a pleasant scent, but the ancients also believed they had properties to moisturize the skin and ward off evil spirits. On special holidays like Dano Festival, women would wash their hair and bodies with sweet flag water, changpo, to promote health and dispel bad luck with fragrance. Natural sachets, hayang nang. These were the most private and exquisite scent accessories for ancient women. They would fill small silk sachets with dried spices like cloves, sandalwood, cinnamon, and mugwort. Wearing them at the waist, tucked into sleeves, or even sewn into the hem of a skirt, the subtle fragrance emitted by the sachet not only masked body odor, but also served to refresh and act as a preventative medicine, according to traditional Eastern medical theories. This scent was not the intense impact of modern perfume, but a subtle, skin-close body aroma, detectable only when close, conveying elegance and refined taste. Friends, through this chapter, we've witnessed the evolution of ancient Korean beauty philosophy from external application to internal conditioning. This beauty concept of cultivating both the inside and outside, uniting body and mind, is the most sophisticated legacy left to us by ancient women. We have completed the comprehensive exploration of the ancient beauty system. Starting from the next chapter, we will turn our attention to the specific historical progression, examining how the unified Silla and Goryeo dynasties continued to shape and develop Korean makeup under the influence of Confucianism and Buddhism. We will see the transition and evolution of aesthetics between Silla's splendor and Goryeo's refinement. Please continue with me as we delve into the courts of unified Silla. Friends, with the fall of the unified Silla dynasty, a completely new dynasty was established on the Korean peninsula in 918 AD, centered around Kaesong, the Goryeo dynasty. The name Goryeo is the source of the word Korea, and it was an era vibrant with culture and refinement. Goryeo inherited Silla's Buddhist culture and the open spirit of the Tang dynasty, but it infused its own unique aesthetic temperament, an intense pursuit of delicacy, elegance, and scholarly sophistication. If Silla was opulent gold, Goryeo was warm, jade-like celadon. In Goryeo, the pursuit of beauty was intertwined with the sensibilities of poetry and painting. Women's makeup began to strive for a state of not seeking intense color, but seeking profound charm. Foundation was still based on the familiar rice powder or shell powder, but they emphasized a natural, jade luster, avoiding any heaviness or exaggerated pallor. The art of the eyebrow reached a new pinnacle in this era. Influenced by Song dynasty culture, Goryeo women were no longer satisfied with Silla's broad or moon brows. They began to draw thinner, curvier, and more varied brow shapes, such as the mountain and water brow, Sansa, Moi, with undulating strokes like a landscape painting, and the distant mountain brow, Wan, San Mui, slender like mountains on the horizon. The drawing material remained graphite ink sticks, but the required finesse of grinding and the technique of application were higher, with every line of the brow appearing to be deliberately considered by a scholar. This pursuit of line quality reflected the Goryeo people's dedication to artistic detail. The use of rouge became much more subtle and meticulous during the Goryeo period. They used rouge extracted from safflower, but applied minimal amounts, only gently dotting the cheeks to create an atmosphere of shy affection. Lip color also favored soft pinks or light reds, rather than the high-saturation vermilion of Silla. The overall makeup aimed for a barely their look, where even close inspection would reveal no obvious trace of cosmetics. Yet one would sense a healthy complexion and refined appearance. This extreme refinement even gave rise to the ancient professional beauty industry. In Goryeo, beauticians began to emerge, specializing in providing makeup services to noblewomen. They were not only adept at mixing various natural pigments, but also skilled at designing customized looks based on each woman's facial bone structure, social status, and the occasion she was attending. This marked the formal shift of Korean makeup from the homemade stage to the professional artistry stage. One of the most notable features of the Goryeo dynasty was the exquisite beauty of hair ornaments. Hairpins, coronets, and headdresses of this era were often made of delicate celadon, carved jade, and polished silver, contrasting with the more rugged gold of the Silla period. They complemented the women's subtle makeup, embodying the Goryeo people's understated luxury. Friends, the aesthetic of the Goryeo dynasty was one of inner beauty and subtlety. It laid the foundation for the elegant purity that would characterize the Korean peninsula's aesthetics for the next few hundred years. However, in the late Goryeo period, as the dynasty faced turmoil, social customs began to change, and this refined aesthetic would soon face a challenge. In the next chapter, we will see how this refined aesthetic was heavily influenced by the Yuan dynasty. Mongols towards the end of the kingdom, giving rise to a new exotic makeup trend. Please carry the memory of Goryeo's pure elegance with you as we proceed to this turning point in history. Friends, as the Goryeo dynasty entered its later period, it gradually became subservient to the powerful northern Yuan dynasty, Mongol Empire. This forced contact with an exotic culture had a disruptive impact on Goryeo's politics, society, and culture, naturally extending to women's makeup. The Goryeo court became saturated with the Mongolian style brought by the Yuan dynasty. This aesthetic was fundamentally different from Goryeo's original subtle style, favoring a sense of strength, healthy beauty, and unique exotic ornamentation. The most significant change in makeup was the eyebrows. Goryeo's previously slender, curved, distant mountain brows were replaced by the Hufeng brows, barbarian-style brows, introduced by the Yuan dynasty. These brows were typically thick and short, intensely black, and slightly upswept, conveying a sense of nomadic boldness and vigor. This style, sometimes called the eight-character brow, or inverted eight-character brow, was visually striking, completely breaking Goryeo's preference for elegant lines. Although foundation still used rice powder, the Mongol people's preference for outdoor activities and horseback riding introduced an aesthetic that favored a healthy, sun-kissed complexion. Consequently, while Goryeo noblewomen couldn't entirely abandon fairness, they would mix their foundation with a slightly rosy tint to make their complexion appear healthier and more vibrant, instead of the pale coolness of mid-Goryeo. The most interesting and exotic feature was the facial decoration. Under the Yuan influence, Goryeo court women began to emulate Mongol nobility by applying bold markings on their cheeks, red tear makeup, or scar makeup, below the corners of the eyes. Too slender, downward-sloping red lines were drawn with vermilion, or rouge, mimicking tear tracks, conveying a sense of decadent and seductive beauty. This makeup expressed the complex emotions surrounding dynastic turmoil and the uncertain status of women at the time. Forehead yellowing, wang and pasting, Mongol attire, influenced by the Central Plains, also brought the custom of forehead yellowing, applying yellow pigment or pasting yellow floral decorations onto the forehead. Goryeo women also began to decorate their foreheads with gold foil or yellow petals. This exotic makeup, full of tension and blending Central Plains and nomadic characteristics, became fashionable in the Goryeo court, representing power and new cultural trends. This aesthetic shift is a classic example of political power forcibly altering the local aesthetic. However, this splendid, slightly seductive style of makeup did not take root in Goryeo society for long. With the fall of the Goryeo dynasty and the establishment of the Joseon dynasty, a new social aesthetic system centered on Neo-Confucianism was on the horizon. The Joseon aesthetic was a strong reaction against the barbarian style of late Goryeo, and it would push Korean makeup into a completely new era of extreme subtlety and purity. Friends, we have journeyed through an era of color and conflict. In the next chapter, we will cross into the early Joseon dynasty and see how Confucian ethics, with their immense power, completely washed away all heavy cosmetics from women's faces, ushering in the golden age of natural beauty. Please continue with me as we witness this major historical turning point. Friends, the establishment of the Joseon dynasty in 1392 marked the beginning of a highly centralized society on the Korean peninsula. Centered around Neo-Confucianism, the new dynasty initiated a thorough purification of social customs, and women's makeup immediately became a primary target for reform. Neo-Confucianism emphasized investigation of things and extension of knowledge, and preserving celestial principle and eliminating human desire. Regarding female morality, it stressed chastity, simplicity, and subtlety. All makeup deemed extravagant, vulgar, or provocative was treated as a vice to be discarded. The Joseon dynasty aesthetic can be summarized as the golden age of natural beauty. Suyanmai, extreme purity, washing away all heavy cosmetics in the early Joseon period. Women of the court and Sadebu scholar official. Families were required to minimize their makeup to the bare necessities. Foundation, rice, or mung bean powder was still used, but the goal was no longer Scylla's golden luster or Lake Goryeo's rosy vitality. Instead, the aim was a healthy and clean natural skin tone. The objective was for the skin to appear translucent, even, and without any visible trace of applied powder. Rouge and lip color. Rouge was almost completely forbidden, or only allowed in minimal amounts applied to the innermost part of the lips. Heavy blush was considered a symbol of frivolity. This restraint made women's faces appear cool, dignified, and intellectual. Eyebrows, they returned to delicate, straight lines, expressing the women's virtue and integrity. The thick, exaggerated 8-character brows completely disappeared, replaced by natural shapes lightly drawn with willow charcoal. 2. Skincare over makeup. The pursuit of innate beauty, with makeup restricted, women shifted all their efforts towards skincare and internal conditioning. They believed that the healthy glow and good skin tone achieved through nourishment and wellness were the only forms of true innate beauty that met Confucian ethical standards. This pursuit of barefaced beauty led to the unprecedented development and popularization of the natural skincare secrets we previously discussed. Rice water, mung bean powder, camellia oil, internal herbal tonics. Women focus more than ever on skin nourishment, hydration, and blood circulation, striving to achieve that natural transparency that required no outward adornment. 3. Hairstyle, a symbol of order and status in the Joseon dynasty. Hairstyles became an even more crucial marker of class and identity than makeup. Married women's hair buns had to be meticulous, styled with the camellia oil we mentioned to be lustrous and sleek. The height of the bun and the material and style of the hairpins were all governed by strict rules of etiquette. For example, the enormous gash wigs piled high were once fashionable, but were eventually banned by government legislation in the 18th century due to their excessive cost and luxury, reflecting the Confucian spirit of frugality. This again proved that in the Joseon dynasty, aesthetics had to be subordinate to political and moral instruction. Friends, the system of aesthetics established in the early Joseon dynasty, pure, subtle, and focused on wellness, is the most profound turning point in the history of ancient Korean makeup. It clearly distinguished the Korean aesthetic from its neighbors, like the elaborate, heavy makeup of Japan, and was deeply imprinted into the DNA of Korean culture. To this day, natural beauty remains the core of K-beauty. We have explored the ancient makeup and skincare philosophies and understood the major transformation brought by Confucianism. In the following chapters, we will explore the symbolic accents that were permitted during the Joseon dynasty and how a different kind of simple yet resilient beauty existed among the commoner class. Please continue with me as we delve into the daily life of the Joseon dynasty. Friends, in the Joseon dynasty, a society where simplicity was the key to beauty, color was almost entirely absent from women's faces. However, one tiny red accent was permitted to remain: the lips. The redness of the lips was no longer for seduction, but to showcase healthy vitality and symbolize the woman's chastity and maternity. The lip color used by Joseon women still came from the natural red pigment extracted from safflower, but the method of application and color intensity were strictly controlled. When applying lip color, they would carefully concentrate the color at the center of the lips, then gently blend it outwards using a finger or cotton cloth, allowing the color to fade from the center to the edges. This technique was called the petal lip or cherry mouth, making the lips appear small, delicate, and multi-layered. It preserved the vitality of life while adhering to the Confucian aesthetic of subtlety and restraint. This technique is the ancient precursor to the gradient lip, or bitten lip look popular in modern K-beauty. Besides the lips, another highly symbolic adornment allowed to remain was the ears. Though makeup was subtle, the use of ear ornaments persisted. The earrings and hairpins worn by Joseon noblewomen were typically understated and refined in material and style, often made of silver, jade, or emerald, rather than the gold favored during the Silla period. These accessories had to match the wearer's status and rank, serving as a silent way to showcase family honor and position. Their presence balanced the potential monotony of a bare face, perfectly embodying the Confucian aesthetic of frugal yet not crude. In the Joseon dynasty, beauty was not solely the privilege of the nobility. The vast majority of commoner women, though they couldn't afford expensive mung bean powder or camellia oil, expressed a beauty characterized by simple and resilient vitality. Their beauty stemmed from diligence and health. Commoner women used the most basic rice rinsing water and herbs they grew themselves for skincare. They drew their brows with burnt rice straw, which was easier to obtain than willow charcoal, and while their clothing and hairstyles were simple, they were always clean and neat. The commoner woman's appearance truly achieved the state of unmade up is better than made up, with faces radiating the natural blush and glow brought by labor. This resilient beauty was a genuine reflection of the healthy social fabric of the Joseon dynasty. Friends, the Joseon dynasty's aesthetic was extreme, using the power of morality and politics to push makeup to the pinnacle of simplicity. This philosophy left Korean makeup with its most crucial legacy. Skincare is the foundation, and makeup is the accent. This philosophy of cultivation for beauty is precisely the core competitive advantage that has allowed modern K-beauty to rise globally. We have now traveled through all the critical phases of ancient Korean makeup, from the boldness of the Three Kingdoms to the refinement of Goryeo, and finally to the simplicity of Joseon. Our story is now nearing its conclusion. Finally, I will provide a summary of the core values of ancient Korean makeup and its influence on modern K-beauty, drawing a perfect close to this journey through time. I have completed this chapter in both Chinese and English without using subheadings. Please let me know if you wish me to proceed to the final summary chapter. Now, friends, ancient women did not have modern air conditioning or sunscreen, and their beauty and health depended entirely on harmonizing with the rhythm of nature. They possessed a complete 4 seasons beauty regimen, cleverly applying the natural materials we discussed to different times of the year. Spring is the season of revival, detoxification, and renewal. In spring, ancient women focused more on cleansing and brightening. They would increase the frequency of using fermented rice rinsing water, leveraging its gentle lactic acid to exfoliate dead skin cells accumulated in winter and awaken the dormant skin. Simultaneously, they began to consume more fresh sprouts and wild vegetables rich in vitamins to help the body detoxify from within, giving the complexion a fresh, luminous look. Summer is the season of heat, humidity, and active oil secretion. During this time, mung bean powder became the undisputed star in the boudoir. As we mentioned, mung beans have heat-clearing and detoxifying properties. In the hot summer, women would use mung bean powder daily instead of plain water for cleansing, to control facial oiliness and prevent acne and breakouts caused by the mix of sweat and oil. They would also apply chilled cucumber slices to their faces for a calming and hydrating effect. This natural summer cooling mask was more gentle and effective than any chemical product. Autumn is the season of dryness, retraction, and nourishment. As the moisture in the air decreased, the skin began to face the challenge of dehydration. Ancient women reduced cleansing frequency and instead used large amounts of oil for moisture locking. Precious camellia oil, sesame oil, or honey would be blended into rich ointments and applied to the face and body. They also harvested chrysanthemums blooming in autumn to brew tea or make floral dew, aiming to nourish the lungs and soothe dryness for the complexion. Winter is the season of cold, constriction, and deep protection. Ancient women needed the strongest possible barrier to shield themselves from the cold wind and low temperatures. Honey and beeswax were used to create an extremely thick, protective cream, applied to easily chapped joints and cheeks. Diet-wise, they increased the consumption of warming herbal tonics like ginseng and dangui to warm the body internally and promote blood circulation. ensuring their complexion remained rosy and not pale, despite the cold. Friends, the ancient woman's 4 seasons beauty regimen was a philosophy of harmonious coexistence with nature. They deeply understood that the human body is part of the natural world, and only by adapting to the time and place can true health and beauty be achieved. We have seen the daily wisdom of ancient women. In the next chapter, we will turn our attention to the most important day in an ancient woman's life. To examine the bridal makeup for her wedding, how it differed from the daily subtle aesthetic, and the cultural and auspicious meanings it carried. Please continue with me as we explore the grand beauty of the ancient bride. Friends, we know how simple and subtle the everyday makeup of the Joseon dynasty was. But on the wedding day, all strict prohibitions on color were temporarily lifted. The bride's makeup ceased to be a personal aesthetic choice and became a cultural declaration and a sign of respect to the groom's family. The ancient wedding, bridal makeup, Walaojang, was the only occasion during the Joseon dynasty where heavy colors were permitted. This look combined the Confucian pursuit of dignity with the folk prayer for fertility and fortune, brimming with auspicious symbolism. First was the foundation. The bride's foundation had to achieve extreme fairness. This whiteness symbolized the bride's chastity and purity, while everyday makeup avoided heaviness. For the wedding, the bride would apply a relatively thick layer of rice powder, or lead powder, reserved only for special occasions like weddings, ensuring the face appeared flawless and dramatically white under the light. The essence of the makeup lay in color, especially the red. The bride would use rouge extracted from safflower to apply large, round, highly saturated blushes on both cheeks, commonly known as red flush, Hongyun. This red flush symbolized health, fortune, strong vitality, and the desire for offspring. It broke the daily restraint, expressing enthusiasm and joy for the new life. Next were the facial dots, the most intriguing part of the bridal makeup. The bride needed to place auspicious red dots on her forehead and cheeks, known as Don-Dond, Forward-Teend, Sound, Bondi, Yonji, Ganji. One red dot was placed in the center of the forehead, symbolizing the Sunday and Yang energy. 2 red dots were placed on the highest point of each cheekbone, symbolizing the moon and yin energy. This union of the Sunday and moon in the makeup was a prayer for yin-yang harmony and family completion. Eyebrows also required careful drawing for the wedding. The bride would draw thick and straight, intensely black brows, a style called the bridal brow, symbolizing the bride's integrity and dignity. Finally, the hairstyle and headwear were the real spectacle. The bride would wear a massive wig bun gash, heavily adorned with exquisite hairpins symbolizing longevity, wealth, and good fortune, such as pins featuring motifs like the dragon, phoenix, and bat, along with a weighty coronet. These heavy ornaments symbolize the familial responsibility and high status the bride was undertaking. Friends, the ancient bridal makeup is the most complex and culturally significant ceremonial look in ancient Korean beauty history. It teaches us that even in the most subtle societies, in the most solemn settings, color and ornamentation remain powerful tools for expressing blessings and transmitting cultural messages. We have witnessed the grand beauty of the ancient bride. In the following chapter, we will turn our attention to the ancient coming-of-age ceremony, to see how the makeup and attire of young women and men symbolized responsibility and independence as they stepped into the adult world. Please continue with me as we witness the mature beauty of the ancients. Friends, in ancient society, the transition from childhood to adulthood was extremely solemn and legally binding. This ceremony was called Guan Rai for males and Ji Rai for females, usually held between the ages of 15 and 20. It was more than just putting on new clothes. It was a profound transformation of makeup and hairstyle, symbolizing independence, constraint, and responsibility. For the female coming-of-age ceremony Jairai, the most crucial change centered on hairstyle and hair ornaments. A girl before Jai Rai typically wore her hair in braids hanging down her back, symbolizing her carefree and unmarried status. During the ceremony, an esteemed female elder would personally undo the braids, coil the hair into a traditional hair bun, and insert an ornamental hairpin, symbolizing her adult or married status. The use of the hairpin marked her official eligibility for marriage and the expectation that she would begin to uphold chastity and family honor, like an adult woman. In terms of makeup, young women at the Jirai were for the first time permitted to formally use small amounts of rouge and lip color, This stood in contrast to their everyday simplicity. But this use was not about pursuing seductiveness. It was about showcasing a healthy sense of maturity. They would use the purest safflower lip color to gently accent the lips, making the complexion appear rosy and vibrant. The eyebrows would be drawn cleaner and more dignified, with straight lines conforming to the Confucian standard of virtuousness. For the male coming of age ceremony, Guan Rai, the change was equally serious. A boy at Guan Rai would coil up the braids hanging down from his unmarried youth, secure them with a headband or Mangjin net cap, and don a hat Guan, most commonly the black horsehair hat Samo, or a bamboo hat. This declared his farewell to playtime and the start of social obligations and Confucian scholarship. In terms of grooming, while men did not wear color cosmetics, the standards for neatness and demeanor dramatically increased after Guan Rai. They had to style their hair bun with camellia oil and use graphite to fill in sparse brows and beards, if grown displaying maturity, neatness, and self-discipline, whether Ji Rai or Guan Rai. These changes in grooming and hairstyle adhered to the Joseon dynasty's philosophy of cultivating both the internal and external. External neatness and dignity had to serve the internal qualities of moral constraint and responsibility. They were clear signals sent by ancient society to the individual. You have left behind adolescence, and now your appearance is the spokesperson for your character and virtue. Friends, we have seen how the ancients used ritualistic grooming to mark major life transitions. In the chapters that follow, we will pull our focus away from the nobility and back to the common people. We will examine how ordinary folk in ancient times used the most basic, readily available natural materials to create a mass aesthetic that was their own and full of the spirit of everyday life. Please continue with me as we listen to the beauty of life in the ancient villages. Friends, when we discuss ancient Korean makeup, it's easy to focus on the rice powder used by nobles and the delicate mother-of-pearl cosmetic boxes. But the true embodiment of the ancients' life wisdom and innovative spirit lies with the vast commoner class. They lacked expensive medicinal ingredients and specialized artisans, but they learned to utilize local resources, turning their kitchens, fields, and forests into their own beauty salons. In the daily life of commoner women, pragmatism was the highest aesthetic principle. First, for foundation. Commoner families could not afford large quantities of finely ground rice powder, let alone lead powder. Their foundation often kitchen byproducts. The most common method was using the broth left over from cooking rice, or thicker rice rinsing water. They would apply this rice water to their faces, and once dried, it would form a thin, lustrous protective film. This not only made the complexion look clean, but also served to moisturize and block dust. This was a functionality first to grooming. Next were color and drawing. Without safflower rouge, commoner women sought the most readily available red. Their most common method was using persimmon juice. Unripe persimmons contain a lot of tannins, but after processing, the juice leaves behind a light reddish pigment. They would dot a small amount of this juice on their lips, or gently rub their lips with the stems of certain plants to achieve a natural healthy color. As for eyebrows, commoner women had no professional willow charcoal or graphite. Their eyebrow pencils might be shavings of charcoal left from cooking fires, or the ashes of burnt rice stalks we mentioned earlier. Though rough, these materials were dark in color. Applied with a finger or coarse cloth, they could quickly outline a simple, direct brow shape. This type of brow reflected the plain, healthy image of a laborer. In terms of hair care, commoner families had limited access to camellia oil. They would use the residue left after pressing sesame oil or water boiled with soberry pods, a natural cleanser to wash their hair, achieving cleanliness and dandruff removal. The hair's luster relied more on a healthy diet and diligent combing than on expensive oils. More interestingly, the ornaments of commoner women were also full of life's practicality. Their hairpins were mostly functional wooden or bamboo pins, rarely featuring jade or silver. The earrings they wore were often made of copper or bone, serving more to keep the ear piercing open than to flaunt wealth. Friends, the aesthetic of the common people was a beauty closely connected to the earth, full of resilience and wisdom. It tells us that beauty is not a costly accumulation but a reflection of life attitude and health status. Although this aesthetic was not recorded in history books, it endured for centuries in the daily life of the Korean peninsula. We have gained deep insight into the beauty wisdom of all social strata in Joseon society. In the next chapter, we will shift our focus back to ancient men. Because in Confucian society, the standards for men's appearance and scent were often stricter than for women. We will explore how the Sadibu scholar, official class, used a complex routine of grooming to embody their morality, scholarship, and status. Please continue with me as we explore the art of the male appearance. Friends, in the highly Confucianized society of the Joseon dynasty, the Sadibu scholar official class was the moral and cultural core of society. Their grooming, which was never called makeup, but rather jiangqi guayang, rectifying the appearance, aimed to showcase moral cultivation, scholarly depth, and respect for ritual. While lacking color, their grooming routine was as complex and strict as that of women. 1. Hair, the symbol of order and self-discipline for the Sadibu. Hair was the single most important element of their appearance. Confucianism held that the body, hair, and skin are received from our parents, and we dare not damage them. So long male hair had to be impeccably cared for. Every morning they would use camellia oil to slick their hair back into a neat top knot before tightly securing it with a net cap mangin and a hat. Guan. This sleek, perfectly ordered top knot symbolized their rigorous self-discipline and orderly inner world. A Sadibu with a messy top knot would be viewed as having lax morals and a frivolous disposition. 2. Brows and beard, the adornments of wisdom and authority. The eyebrows and beard, if grown, were key areas the Sadibu used to enhance their authority and sense of wisdom. Although they did not use colorful cosmetics, they utilized the familiar graphite ink stick. They would grind the ink stick into liquid ink to fill in sparse brows, ensuring the brow shape looked thick, straight, and dignified. Symbolizing an upright character, groom the beard. A neat, uniform beard was a symbol of maturity and scholarship. They would use the ink to fill gaps in the beard and even use oil to style it, ensuring every hair lay neatly in place. The goal of this grooming was to project an image that was stable, resolute, and scholarly. 3. Skin, the pursuit of freshness and cleanliness. The Sadibu's attention to skin focused on freshness and cleanliness. Especially in summer, they would use mung bean powder for cleansing to remove sweaty oiliness and shine. The skincare products they used were primarily vegetable oils, such as sesame oil or small amounts of camellia oil, to ensure the skin wasn't too dry, but they strictly avoided the soft glass skin look favored by women. Their skin had to appear healthy, firm, and masculine. 4. Scent, the subtle aroma of purity and disciplined scent, was equally important for men. They would not use strong perfumes but would wear sachets, hyang nang, to emit a light, plant-based body fragrance. The sachets usually contained spices like sandalwood, cloves, and angelica dahorica, which were believed to have calming and invigorating effects. This subtle fragrance symbolized the Sadibu's noble character and resistance to temptation. Friends, the ancient male's rectification of appearance was an embodiment of moral aesthetics. Their dressing table was their discipline bench, and every step was a practice of Confucian ritual and self-cultivation. This philosophy of expressing virtue through appearance is a masculine yet profound aspect of ancient Korean beauty wisdom. In the chapters that follow, we will refocus on daily details. We will look at how the ancient tools and techniques reached their pinnacle during the Joseon dynasty. Specifically, how the exquisite combs and mirrors embodied the ingenuity of ancient artisans. Please continue with me as we appreciate the practical art of the ancients. Friends, we have appreciated the Sadibu's commitment to the art of appearance. Whether it was the man's sleek, slicked, back top knot, or the woman's subtle, dignified face, all required tools to achieve. In the Joseon dynasty, these everyday grooming implements were themselves a manifestation of practical art. They were not mere objects, but symbols of the ancient artisan's ingenuity and the user's self-discipline. The most essential tool was the comb bit. Ancient combs were made from diverse materials, from precious woods like sandalwood and boxwood, to rare materials like oxhorn and ivory. A good comb was the guarantee of order in the ancient hairstyle. For the Sadibu, the comb was used to manage the top knot that symbolized their virtue, ensuring every strand lay perfectly smooth. For women, the comb was not only necessary for long hair care, but also a symbol of status and a private gift. A finely crafted comb, gifted by a lover or family elder, carried deep affection and expectations for the woman's chastity and gentleness. Ancient combs even served different functions, with fine-tooth combs, cham bit for styling the ends, and wide-tooth combs, sal bit for cleaning the scalp, demonstrating an extreme attention to hair details. Another indispensable tool was the mirror. In ancient times, mirrors were known as bronze mirrors or geo-will, and were initially made of polished bronze or brass. In ancient society, the mirror was not just a tool for women to check their makeup, for the sadebu pursuing expressing virtue through appearance. It was a necessary means of self-reflection and correcting one's demeanor. Looking in the mirror was termed jiangguiguan, rectifying the clothes and hat, and the act itself carried Confucian moral significance. The mirror had to be kept shiny to ensure it clearly reflected the user's face, allowing them to scrutinize themselves and prevent any laxity in their appearance. Although glass mirrors were introduced to Joseon in the later period, the traditional bronze mirror was still valued as a more culturally significant object due to its simplicity and symbolic meaning. These refined grooming tools embodied the ancient society's belief that detail is morality. A person who meticulously cared for their comb and mirror was also a person capable of managing family and state affairs. Well, friends, we have gained deep insight into ancient beauty philosophy, class differences, and daily tools. In the chapters that follow, we will turn our attention to the hobbies of ancient women. We will see how, in their leisure time, apart from grooming, they express their inner emotions and artistic taste through handicrafts like embroidery and aromatherapy. Please continue with me as we peek into the refined life of the ancient boudoir. Friends, in the Joseon dynasty, women's makeup was strictly limited to simplicity, meaning their emotions and artistic talents could not be fully displayed on their faces. Consequently, they transferred this delicate creativity to handicraft arts, particularly embroidery and aromatherapy. These hobbies became an outlet for the ancient woman's spiritual world and an extension of her inner beauty. Embroidery jazu was the most common and revered art in the boudoir. Women stitched exquisite patterns onto clothing, pillowcases, and shoes, and these motifs were themselves a pursuit of beauty and auspiciousness. They used colored silk threads to embroider mandarin ducks and butterflies, to symbolize marital harmony, pine trees and cranes to symbolize longevity, and pomegranates and grapes to symbolize fertility. Every stitch embodied the woman's beautiful wishes for her family and future. While rouge on the face was restricted, the colors they used on fabric were vibrant and free. These embroidered items were not just decorations. They were a testament to the woman's serenity, patience, and skillful hands, and an important way to demonstrate her virtue to her in-laws. Simultaneously, aromatherapy and sachet making were also important forms of beauty care. Since strong perfumes were forbidden, women made natural sachets, hyangnang themselves. They would gather natural spices like cloves, cinnamon, and mugwort from their courtyards, dry and crush them, and then fill small, beautifully sewn sachets. Wearing these sachets allowed their bodies to emit a subtle, clean, plant-based scent. This aroma was not only a reflection of personal taste, but also a method of internal conditioning and health maintenance, as the ancients believed spices could ward off evil and keep the mind serene. The process of making sachets was the woman's private time to connect with nature and cultivate her temperament in quiet solitude. This handicraft aesthetic, which combined art, emotion, and practicality, was perfectly consistent with their skincare philosophy. Both emphasized naturalness, subtlety, and long-term investment. A woman who was patient and meticulous with embroidery would surely maintain long-term discipline and consistency in her skincare routine as well. Friends, we have seen how ancient women cultivated themselves both internally and externally, using their bodies and handicrafts to construct their world of beauty. In the next chapter, we will explore an ancient beauty secret that is very region-specific and practical: sawweed. Kelp. We will see how ancient women living near the coast turned this ocean plant into their hair and skincare treasure. Please continue with me as we dive into the ancient secrets of marine beauty. Friends, most of our stories have focused on rice and medicinal herbs, but the Korean peninsula is surrounded by the sea on 3 sides, and marine resources are equally abundant. For ancient women living in coastal areas, kelp, decima, and various seaweeds were their ocean serums. Their beauty wisdom was truly a case of relying on the mountains for food and the sea for sustenance. In coastal regions, kelp and seaweed were primarily used for hair care. We know that Joseon dynasty women, whether noble or commoner, were required to maintain long, lustrous, black hair. Coastal women discovered that the minerals, iodine, and mucilage, gel abundant in kelp, served as a natural hair conditioner. They would boil dried kelp in water and use the resulting thick liquid to wash and soak their hair. This kelp water was believed to nourish the scalp and make the hair darker, smoother, and shinier. Especially when styling hair buns, the kelp mucilage acted like a natural hair wax, helping the strands lie more sleekly and smoothly, while being more affordable and accessible than costly camellia oil. Beyond hair care, kelp water was also used for skin treatment. Coastal women found that washing their faces with kelp water provided gentle cleansing and hydration. The rich minerals and vitamins in seaweed were believed to help the skin maintain moisture and elasticity. They would crush softened seaweed into a paste and apply it directly to their faces, creating a natural ocean mask to counteract the dryness and saltiness caused by the sea wind. This marine aesthetic is the best example of the regionality of ancient Korean makeup. It proves that even in the absence of extensive commercial circulation, ancient people were capable of flexibly adapting and creating effective beauty methods based on their immediate environment. Though not recorded in official medical texts, this knowledge was passed down through generations of fisherwomen and Hanyo sea women, becoming a valuable piece of folklife wisdom. Friends, we have now explored all the major secrets of ancient Korean makeup, from philosophy to practice, from court to commoner, from the seasons to the seaside. We have seen its internal depth, moral restraint, and extreme reliance on nature. Our story journey now truly reaches its conclusion. In the final, the 30th chapter, I will use a concluding review to connect all these secrets and show you how this ancient Korean beauty philosophy maps perfectly onto the globally popular K-beauty of today, drawing an inspiring and complete circle for our bedtime story. Please continue with me as we proceed to the final brilliant summary. Friends, after exploring these 30 chapters, we realize that the story of ancient Korean makeup is fundamentally a tale about how to find your true self. The legacy ancient women left us is not a box of cosmetics, but a philosophy of life that integrates internal and external cultivation. Let us review the 3 DNA legacies that ancient Korean beauty passed down to modern K-beauty. The first legacy, cultivation is beauty, skincare is faith. The ancient woman's entire focus, from rice water, mung bean powder, camellia oil to seaweed, was on cleansing, detoxifying, nourishing, and protecting. It was the Neo-Confucian restriction on heavy makeup during the Joseon dynasty that forced women to invest their energy into cultivation. This directly birthed modern K-beauty's famous 10-step routine, the craze for serums, and the intense pursuit of glass skin. Ancient rice powder and kelp have been replaced by today's hyaluronic acid and fermented filtrates. But the philosophy that the foundation is more important than the embellishment remains unchanged. The second legacy, food is medicine. The ancient woman's internal and external use of medicinal herbs like ginseng, dangui, and mugwort demonstrates a deep belief in the healing power of natural ingredients. This belief is the foundation of modern K-beauty's hanbang cosmetics. Today, the ingredients we see in high-end skincare, ginseng, yeast, propolis, and snail mucin, are all continuations of the ancient spirit of using local resources and healing nature with nature. The third legacy, subtle restraint, details determine success. The ancient woman's gradient lip, fine straight eyebrows, and the delicacy of hairpins and sachets all reflect a pursuit of an image that is pure, innocent, and self-disciplined. Their beauty was non-aggressive and unpretentious. This is perfectly mirrored in modern K-beauty's no-makeup look, emphasizing translucency in the base and using only minimal color for accenting and highlighting the lips and eyes. This subtle aesthetic makes the image of the Korean woman distinctive globally. Friends, our story has come to an end. Taking this ancient wisdom, we can re-examine the modern dressing table and realize that the most effective, most popular beauty secrets were actually hidden in the kitchens and boudoirs of ancient women. I hope this journey has not only informed you about the history of ancient Korean makeup, but has also given you new inspiration about what true beauty is. Thank you for completing these 30 nights of bedtime stories with me. Good night.